Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Lee Social Podcast. And today we have a very special guest with us. We are joined by Joshua Theeuf, the founder of Visla, an AI consulting firm that's paving the way in the industry. Joshua and his team at Visla are at the forefront of AI innovation, helping businesses and organizations leverage the power of artificial intelligence to achieve their goals. Joshua is not just an AI consultant. He's a visionary who sees the potential of AI to transform our world. With years of experience in the field, he understands the challenges and opportunities that come with implementing AI solutions. His work at Visla is a testament to his expertise and dedication to pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. From prompt engineering to language model development, from AI-assisted development to marketing, Joshua and his team offer a range of services that are helping businesses navigate the AI landscape. They're not just building AI solutions, they're building the future. Joshua's journey goes beyond his work at Visla. He's a thought leader in the field, constantly exploring new ideas and strategies, and sharing his insights with others. His approach to AI is holistic, considering not just the technical aspects, but also the ethical, societal, and philosophical implications of this technology. So whether you're an AI enthusiast, a business owner looking to leverage AI, or just someone curious about the future of technology, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Please join me in welcoming Joshua Theeuf. Hey Joshua, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Everything is hectic. It's great.
It's good that you're busy. Thanks for taking the time out for this podcast recording on short notice. So appreciate that.
Yeah, no problems. Sorry.
Hey Josh, I know you're on a time crunch. I just want to get straight into some of this. Can you share your personal journey into the field of AI?
Sure.
What sparked your interest in this area and led you to start Visla? Is that how you pronounce it?
By background, I studied a double degree in engineering and computer science at RMIT in Melbourne. And while there, I did my engineering theses within the realm of AI. I was looking at sentiment analysis and how you could actually predict where the market was going based on Twitter. Turns out I couldn't do that in 2016. I just wasn't smart enough to be able to work out how to do that correctly. And so it's always been one of those things where I've been interested in, and technology is one of those things. It's just that I've always been quite good at, but it sat on the back burners since living in Sydney and focusing on finance. But then I got roped into it when I started looking at some tools in one of my previous businesses. It was a business called Money Loop. We looked at a tool that allowed you to take a picture of a napkin and then it'll build your website. So what all these GPT agents are doing right now, where you can take photos and it builds websites. A friend of mine built that in 2018. And that's kind of like getting exposed to that is like a little bit mind blowing and forces you to reevaluate where a lot of things are.
Wow, that's crazy. And that was back in 2018.
Yeah.
Now everyone's being mind blown now, let alone back in 2018.
Yeah. So it's a slippery slope into what am I doing for myself? With GPT agents being where they are, I'm starting to form the viewpoint that I studied the wrong thing. I feel like I should have studied English.
We can get into that a bit more. So maybe we could get into a little bit about what Visla is about so the audience has a rough idea.
Visla is actually brand new. It's a combination of work between myself and my partner, Nick. Nick's a former founder of Spaceship, a former CTO there, and has an exited fintech founder. We got together about a month and a bit ago thinking a lot of this GPT stuff's really interesting. We don't think a lot of people really understand the actual power or nuance behind it. And we also don't think that it's being reflective correctly. But at the same stage, whereas we're not very smart, we don't really know what we're doing. So why don't we try to learn as much as we possibly can, as quickly as we can? And so we thought we'd start a consulting company because we both have a background in tech. But the premise behind the consulting company is to help us learn more about where this technology is going. So our internal locus of control, or what we're trying to do with Visla, is we've got a project where we built 50 different AI-driven products in 50 weeks.
Wow.
And then our point is we'll write blogs about it, show people the cool things you can do to help people understand that there is more to this technology than just, oh my God, it can read a PDF.
Yes, I hear you. So would it be fair to say you guys basically do customized bespoke AI solutions for businesses?
It's one of the things we look at. So I would say the key thing at the moment with AI being so young, we more will go into a business and we'll say, cool, what are you actually trying to do? And is this a problem that AI can actually solve? because AI is still very limited in scope. It is literally a guessing machine. It's a stochastic model that guesses the next character, and it's a really good at it. But it's not really good for a lot of use cases a lot of people think it is good for. So it's kind of like we want to go to a business and say, cool, what are your problems? How can we help? Is there technology out there that can actually already do this? If there is, we'll help them execute on the technology that already exists. And if there isn't, we'll say, yes, we can do this, but it's going to be expensive and the timeline to get this done is quite long.
Yep. And what have you seen so far people coming to you guys for in terms of what kind of requests are you getting?
A lot of it is low-level knowledge worker type skills. A primary example is we've had a few digital agencies come to us and say, we're not quite sure how, we don't want to pay people to do our reporting on Google Analytics. Can you build us a tool that will pull this all down, put it into a report to us so we can just give it to our client and it saves them $500 a week. It's really simple stuff. And I think that's where we've got to start. I think anyone that says that they can do really cool things with AI is probably a little bit delusional. I'm not convinced that there is a moat on any unique product being built within the generative space at the moment.
Yep. And I'm curious to hear, what other AI tools have you seen help reduce overheads for like businesses in a sense? Like that was a very great example that you sent with Google Analytics and saving $500 a month. That's awesome.
I know something we built recently, we looked at from a value creation perspective. One of the projects we did at Visla was we wanted to build our first employee. We don't have any other employees. It's just myself and Nick, but we thought AI is a really good use case for building an employee that we can generate value with. So we've created an employee. Her name's Catherine, and she's completely made up. She has a LinkedIn profile with 200 followers. It's great. She's from the University of Leeds. But what Catherine does is she'll actually go bid on jobs on Upwork, doing copywriting and editing for people who are trying to do this because people still haven't caught up with that you can automate a lot of these tasks. And so she's just out there doing work for us. And that's an interesting use case. As for the other things that are out there, we've seen some basic stuff in the customer service space where you're looking at how can we make chatbots on websites more interactive, because organizations have large knowledge bases. And it's like, how do you enable your consumers to access that knowledge base in a way that is more efficient than the current chatbots that are out there? But I think we're all a little bit naive as to where we can take and implement this technology.
I guess that kind of brings me on to the next part is, what are some of the most common misconceptions businesses have about implementing AI solutions?
For the moment, I think the biggest misconception is that it can solve all your problems. It's so funny. The other week, I have another business. It's a finance company, and my business partner asked me whether I could get GPT to look at our insurance policy documentation and tell us what works and what doesn't work. The issue with that is that a lot of this technology is dumb. It can read the document, but it can't actually explain to you the nuances of the document. So I think there's this unrealistic expectation because people have seen it do cool things that it can solve actually taking the time to review documentation and making sure it's fit for purpose.
Yeah,
I think that's a long way off. I think that's where you start to looking at like true general intelligence, where you're actually looking for fit for purpose.
Yep.
So
there's a lot of excitement around this whole space at the moment, and everyone's thinking, wow, it can do this, it can do that, it can do this, it can do that. And everyone's talking about a whole bunch of things. But when you actually get down to the crunch, it's like, oh, okay, what can it actually do for me?
Yeah.
And I think that's when people start to get stuck a little bit. It's like, okay, yeah, it can write. It's great that it does this. But I guess we're all trying to find out, like, how does this apply to me now, here, with what I'm working on?
I agree. I do genuinely believe that the generative models that are out there at the moment will get significantly better over time. And I do think that there is a systemic risk to knowledge workers in all organizations where if they think that they can continue to be subpar performers and maintain their role, I think they're delusional. And I'm not even convinced that at the moment that if you are, say, you're a junior marketer trying to get your foot in the door, I think this whole idea of working from home is probably going to be more detrimental to you because of these AI tools are going to make you less valuable. And if you're not out there meeting people, getting to putting yourself in a position where you can meet the right people, learn something smarter that you won't learn through just doing stuff, I think you're in trouble.
I think that's the other concern about this whole space, right? Is, am I going to lose my job? And is it going to take my job? And just going back to what you were talking about before in terms of working with chatbots for companies,
Mhm.
how do you see that space playing out? Do you think a lot of pretty much every business is going to have their own chatbot trained on their own knowledge base?
100%. And I think any organization that isn't thinking like that is wasting their time. I also am really struggling to see a time and place where organizations need call centers at the moment.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
envisioning a future where you take in a customer's knowledge base, take in a voice prompt from a telephone system, and it returns the correct response from the knowledge base without you having to train up people in other countries or even onshore. I just don't see that as being a thing in the next 3 years.
I agree. I think a lot of it will be replaced by AI. And I'm even curious about what you see the role of AI evolving in the business landscape over the next 5 to 10 years. I know how quickly it's moving already, so 5 to 10 years is a big question. But I just want to hear what your thoughts are.
I think it's going to become something that is ubiquitous. And I think it is uh, definitely a platform shift in the way we conduct business and think about how we're trading. I don't think it's going to be life altering. I'm genuinely really struggling at this present point in time to find a business use case or a company's use case that is defensible, that where there is a moat.
Mm.
Like I think where the only moats that can exist are moats on data, but we're seeing that constantly being chipped away at with different countries enforcing different regulation around who owns what data. And so
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to see a scenario where, unless of course massive regulation happens really quickly, where there is a moat. So I think it becomes ubiquitous. I think we're going to see massive efficiency improvements and businesses making more money with less staff. But I just don't see any real game-changing businesses emerging out of the technology in its current state.
And so then it leads me on to, what is the vision for Visla moving forward then? How do you plan to continue innovating and staying ahead in this rapidly evolving field?
To be honest, our vision for Visla is we want to build 50 cool things, learn a lot. Once we've learned a lot, we'll have a better understanding of what can we do to help improve efficiencies within organizations. We aren't delusional in the sense saying that we're going to build a product that everyone's going to want. I don't think that's the case. I think what we're going to do is we're going to build a product that is going to solve specific use cases for specific businesses. And if we end up building tools that help solve those use cases, I think that's where we create value. But I just don't see us starting $1 billion business. I see us offering a suite of services or tools that improve efficiencies, that make knowledge workers more efficient, that ultimately drive better outcomes for businesses. I like the example I gave with the marketing agencies looking to use AI internally to save them $500 a month.
Yep. Have you started the 50 projects over 50 weeks? So where are you publishing that at the moment?
So we haven't published our first blog yet. So our first blog is due to be published in the next week or so. This is all directly related to Catherine. So the first thing we ever built was we built a PDF ingester. So you could ask it a PDF question. That was something we built in. We give it, our timeline's really weird. Myself and Nick, we catch up on a Sunday afternoon. We spend 2 hours deciding what we're doing for the week. And then we've got the rest of the week to build it. And so we'd come back the following Sunday. We'd say, cool, we're done. We're live. And then we'd start the process again. It's just super interesting. And it's really interesting to have this accountability where you're like, cool, you've got to take what is currently out there and then do something with it really quickly and test and learn and iterate and put it out there. So for example, that chat PDF thing I spoke to you about, that's something that we've used internally at my current business. As I mentioned, we've got that working in Upwork doing work for us. She's won a couple of jobs, which is quite nice.
Awesome.
Like it's just silly little things that are just constant iterative improvement about what type of skills are we learning right now that are going to make this better. So one of the things we're looking at the moment is like, how do we create toolkits to help other people engage with AI that declutters it all? Because I think it is a very cluttered space at the moment where there's so many things happening at the same time. It's really hard to pick out like, which model do you need to use to serve a use case? How do you interact with the model? How do you sign up? What do you do with it? And kind of like, how do you declutter it? How do you allow people to make those decisions really quickly without the need to learn about everything? Because as you said earlier, there is the rate of improvement is staggering. And it's like, how do you keep in front of that?
And I reckon it's pretty cool that you guys have Catherine as an AI assistant or an AI employee, and she's got her own avatar profile on Upwork and getting jobs. Do you see that happening a lot more often? And then
Oh,
there will be like this
100%.
workforce, and it's like rows of AI avatars and then rows of human people trying to compete for the same jobs and stuff like that.
100%. 100%. Like, one of the things we're looking at the moment is, do we give Catherine another skill set? Because at the moment she's primarily focused on copywriting and writing blogs and poems and all that other stuff. But we're like, maybe we can make her a web designer. Like, we just give her another skill set and be like, cool, now she can build websites for people. And that isn't a significant leap in technological capability.
So, or do we create another character called Sonia or something?
Yeah, exactly. Catherine's brother or Catherine's sister or something like that. And we have an army of Catherine. It's great. And I can guarantee you, we're not the only ones out there doing that. You could almost imagine anyone who has even remotely looked at this space and thought, I'm incredibly lazy. How do I do this more efficiently? Let's build Catherine.
I interviewed General from Mirage Gallery about a year and a half or 2 years ago now in the NFT AI space. And at the time, he created a series of artworks, but had created these AI characters, AI avatars. They were the artists. And I mean, he was one of the first to do that on the blockchain, and it took off. And the artists pretty much sold out a lot of their pieces. And it was interesting because now you could literally take that and put it on steroids, right? You
100%.
Like DID and have them talking and moving and animating and taking interviews.
I was reading this article the other week where you have AI OnlyFans already out there, where you've got agents on OnlyFans who are AI bots that people are interacting with. I know the article I read said this person made $40,000 a month with an AI.
I saw that title.
And I'm like, how is this even possible? This is fantastic. But I think that's just showing how close we are to the Turing test and how it's becoming harder and harder for us to discern what is real and what isn't.
And now, since we're talking about concerns, how do you think AI is changing our society? Because what do you see as the potential dangers and ethical concerns that we should be aware of, and how do we tackle them?
That's a great question. Clearly, the major ethical concern is the introduction of news that doesn't exist. Even if you look at things like deep fakes, I'm sure you saw that article where in US Supreme Court, where Elon Musk's defense about Tesla car that's autopilot that failed. His defense is that I have so many deep fakes of me out there that I never said what you said I said, even though it was published at a conference he spoke at. I kind of feel like this whole age of disinformation and the ability to be able to discern what is actually real and what isn't real is getting blurred very quickly. And it already has been, and now it's been amplified and accelerated. And I wish I had a solution to that. I know there are tools out there like fraternity and university students where they can predict that this body of text was written by an AI agent. I'm just not sure we can do this at a pace, or if we're willing to do this at a pace that makes sense. I think this whole lethargy of, do we care enough to be able to do something about this? Even though I think we need to, but I don't think regulation is the right way to do it either. I think there are laws out there already in place that address all of these concerns, and to add more regulation on top of it only will stifle innovation and only stifle the ability for a country to move forward and develop this technology in a way that is meaningful. I think we introduce sovereign state risk if Australia was to regulate AI and not have the rest of the world follow suit. I think if we're regulating and no one else is, what are we doing? A classical World War II thing, build a nuclear bomb, only country on the planet has it in the US. Let's not teach anyone else how to do it. And then 10 years later, 20 years later, introduce things to stop people from doing it.
Right.
If you want to equate it to a nuclear weapon, we need to be at the front of it. It's how we're going to defend ourselves in the future, even if it's from cybersecurity threats or disinformation threat, or what the threat actors are. I think it's a tool that we need to be investing heavily in and not worrying about regulation for the moment. But the counterpoint to that is that if we're going to invest heavily into it, we also need to invest heavily into understanding what are the agents out there that are doing the exact same thing, to identify that this is misinformation or this is not written by a person.
I agree. And I think that the technology needs to be developed at the same pace to fight against its own work, essentially. So to create these agents to identify what is wrong and what is right, or like what is real and what is not.
Yeah.
And it's, you hear these scary things, and if we were to put ourselves in that shoes, imagine somebody just copied your mother's voice,
Which has
and
happened, right?
then
That's happening at
they call you and they're like, "Hey, Joshua, mum's in a bit of a panic state at the moment, and I need urgently something. Can you help me?" Whatever. And how do you differentiate that? Because it sounds exactly like your mother.
That's already happening.
Yeah.
Terrifying. You've seen scammers becoming smarter with like, I can use AI voice generation to get you to send me $1,000 because I'm desperate. Like, what even?
It's scary.
But there is I don't think there's an easy path forward there. I think interesting times.
And just changing gears a bit, I'm always curious, and I've been thinking about, can AI be creative? Can it produce original ideas or works of art? And if so, what does that mean for our understanding of creativity?
See, I like this question because I think everyone gets too bogged down in that, oh my God, it's only reproducing work that it already knows. But if you go back to the idea of human thought and creativity, that's what we do. As humans, we are literally reproducing someone else's work with a slight twist on it because we've failed to remember it correctly, or we've had some incongruence in our recollection. And so our mistakes ultimately lead to better creativity or something that's slightly different to the way people think about things. I think you'd look at it the same way with an AI model. If it is just statistical in nature or stochastic in nature, if the probability tree says, oh, cool, we're actually going to take this path instead of this path, it's creative. It's generating its own body of work. I think it's hard to argue with saying that AI can't be creative, because I think it is creative. It's done exactly what we've done from a human perspective, but because it's not a human, we're saying it's not creative. I'm not sure. Like, you can't argue that the textbook you read at university is the reason why you can build a bridge or do whatever you do as a profession.
Yeah, because we're always constantly borrowing ideas, right? And that's what somebody has defined innovation as a slight change in something that's already been done.
Like, a really good example of this is your DNA, right? Every time that a cell reproduces, it's copying its genetic structure, and occasionally that DNA doesn't quite copy correctly, and that results in evolution or something to that effect.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation before. And the other argument was, it's like, okay, if we look at a few different paintings and we start drawing, that's because we're kind of like looking at, okay, what does a lion look like, and what does another lion look like? And then we go, okay, well, let's try to copy and draw the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a similar thing with generative art, in the sense where they're essentially looking up the databases of all the different lions and then just drawing upon that, drawing something similar to that, in a sense.
I'm not sure that's correct, because generative art and any generative model is still stochastic in nature. It isn't looking up a reference body of work. What it's saying is that if you have two lines that are parallel, it will say the likelihood of the next line being vertical to the two lines is 60%. So it will choose to do the 60% this one time, and the next time I might choose to do the 30%. It's always optimizing for what is the next most likely outcome. And that isn't referencing two paintings. That's saying, I've seen 1,000 paintings right, that have two straight lines, and 60% of them are vertical the next.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we can even equate to.
Because then that's where the other argument comes in, is the other artists are coming in and they're screaming that no, AI art is not real art. That's the other argument about
that's ego. That's ego. It's the same. It's the same thing. Rugby league playing saying soccer isn't real football. It's just people wanting to protect their own microcosm of life.
Yeah, it's a different paradigm. I feel different understanding, different generation, people with different things.
Well, it's the Industrial Revolution, right? You didn't. One of the things was if you farmed rice by hand, you weren't really, but you farmed it by a tractor, you weren't really farming rice. It's just dumb. It's just that I don't think that logic train follows through, and I think anyone who thinks it does is trying to protect themselves. They're just trying to justify why theirs is more pure than an AI model's, which is still doing exactly the same thing.
And
though I will preface this, I would say that yes, AI has the ability to be creative and do things differently. I'm not convinced that it has the ability to take a problem space and then solve those problems, because that's not what it does. That's not what generative models do at the moment. it will take a problem space. And if it knows, statistically speaking, this is the next step, that's what it will do. If it doesn't know what the next step is, it has no idea. So we don't have to worry about it replacing complex work or problem solving. We only have to worry about it replacing like thematic ideas.
Yeah,
I think things that are thematic, and that's where the whole point, if you are a knowledge worker that doesn't have a lot of skills, that is the work that's repeatable and practical all the time. That's what an AI is going to do. It's not going to be that engineer who's designing a bridge for the first time because they won't know how to do that. It's not going to be your Leonardo da Vinci who's painting in a brand new style for the first time because it doesn't know how to do that. There is that room for innovation and adoption and creativity, but anyone that's just ultimately doing the same thing as anyone else in the past, you're going to find yourself competing with AI agents. And this is where it comes down to an ego thing. Everyone thinks they're doing something slightly unique, but frankly, to be honest, no one really does a lot of things that are unique. We're stealing ideas from everyone all over the place.
And so with your experience and your understanding, how or what would you recommend to people to upskill or think differently so that they wouldn't be outpaced by Catherine, for example?
Great question. And I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I think we've just got to learn how to use these tools effectively and just understand that the reality is that these things are there to make you better at what you do. You may be good at it, but it's going to make you 10 times better. It's kind of like the whole 80-20 rule, where you can get something 80% of the way and it takes 20% of the work. And then to get to the last 20% takes 80% of the work. I think AI is going to shift our workload from being 80% of the work is done by an AI agent and the last 20% is actually where you've got to demonstrate your expertise.
It's a great tool to use as an aid at the moment. Like you said, it doesn't completely take over the complete problem solving thing at the moment, but it's a really great tool to aid so that you can get all that nitty gritty work that you don't really like doing. And it's repetitive tasks and you just get it to pump it out. And then and you fix up the rest.
Yeah, it's exactly like a calculator, right? Everyone was against the calculator until it became ubiquitous and everyone understood how to use it. And now no one's against it. Interesting.
And with all the fast developments at the moment, how are you staying up to date with the latest developments in the field of AI? What sources do you recommend for someone looking to learn more about AI and its applications?
To be honest, I listen to a lot of YouTube videos. That's primarily how I'm keeping up to date. And I just have a whole heap of stuff in the background that plays. I couldn't actually give you a reference source. And that comes down to, I've just got a playlist of things that just run through. And if I hear the same thing again, okay, that's interesting. And then I'll move on. And so this is stuff I listen to in the background. So I've got peripheral understanding of what's happening. And then that plays into what I'm thinking about when I go look at Catherine or I'm looking at Visla and the technology we can apply there. Because half the work of anything is just having an understanding that it exists. Like if you don't know it's there, then you don't know.
Is there a particular channel that you go back to?
There is. I will have to flick that through to you afterwards though.
Yeah, sure. No worries. I'll pop it in the show notes.
Okay.
And what kind of tools are you using day to day? Are you using tools day to day?
At the moment, if I'm writing any form of copy, I'm using Bard, mostly because I really appreciate the fact that it gives me 3 versions of the same thing. And then I get to pick and choose. But mostly, no, not really. I'm not, in my day-to-day role, I'm not seeing a massive use case for generative AI outside of if I need to write something and I don't particularly want to do it. And I can give it some context points and it just writes it for me. But that's more of I'm inherently lazy and if I don't need to do it, I won't do it. But a lot of the stuff, my day-to-day role is more people focused, more operational focus, less about how do I produce content or copy or stuff like that. That's just not where I sit.
And with the conversations you're having with your business partner, say Nick, with the blog posts and the ideas that you guys are coming up, would you be able to give us a teaser of what's to come, some of the ideas that you guys are working on? So we've got something to look forward to.
At the moment, it's hard because we don't know until the Sunday before we actually know. So our process is literally, we will sit in a room for 2 hours. We'll say, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Is there something we can do around this? Have you looked at this problem space? And we're like, yes, I've looked at this problem space. And we're like, well, maybe we look at it from this perspective. I know one of the things we spoke about earlier is we're going to give Catherine web design skills. So we plan on probably just upskilling her this weekend with web design skills, web development skills. I know that's coming really quickly. I know we're looking at how do we build one API for all LLMs, because it's all really confusing at the moment. There's too many things out there trying to do the same thing. But other than that, it's literally sit in a room, throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And if it passes effectively the pub test in the room, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to work out, does it pass the pub test? This is something that is achievable and measurable and something that we can just throw out there and let people try it. If we can do that, we'll do that. If we think efficiently and in a manner that we're going to learn something.
Great. Essentially, you guys are building in public and then learning what's working and then use that to replicate or
try again,
reproduce for other people's results.
Try again. So one of the things I know Nick wants to look at the moment, he wants to look at building out an AI bot that will take in HTML alt tags and generate images based on those alt tags, so that you don't ever have to generate images again for your website. You don't have to go to Unsplash or anything like that. It just generates the image for you, which I think is super interesting, but kind of complicated.
So do you guys both code?
So we both got engineering backgrounds, which is kind of an advantage to us because it allows us to do things really quickly and iterate and just throw things at a wall. But with like the introduction of Copilot and a few of these other pair programming tools, I think most low-level programmers that people are really great at it can actually start building stuff really quickly. And there are a lot of AI tools out there that allow you to build a website for reason. If you want to get into the startup ecosystem, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be able to say, I don't need a technical founder anymore. I can do this myself, build something really quickly, and then focus on how do I grow it. And if it ever becomes an issue where technology is a limiting factor, I think then you've got a problem where you can actually go solve it rather than technology being the reason why you can't get something started. Right. I think it's opened the doors for people to start and try and innovate and do multiple things at the same time and not worry about, I don't know how to write on a code, because I think that's a cop out now. I think people were using it as a cop out previously because they didn't want to learn. And right now it is only a cop out, because if you're not trying, what are you doing?
And so for those who are interested and they don't know how to code or they have very basic knowledge, as you said, low-level programmers, where would you recommend them to go to use these Copilot tools or increase their knowledge to be able to use them?
To be honest, I think I would be trying to find I know there's a bunch of AI-based website builders out there at the moment. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Being an engineer, I just do it myself. But I'll send you a link to a couple that I've seen that looks really cool. I know that I've recently played around with Squarespace just because I don't want to have to build a basic HTML page. I'm incredibly lazy. If I can avoid building something, I'll avoid building it. I want to do something really quickly, test and learn. But I know they had some really great tools around introducing copy and writing that stuff for you that's built on GPT. So even if you want to start an e-com site or just something really basic, and it's not a fully fledged software-based program, I would probably just start with someone like Squarespace, see if you can get them pre-sales. If you can get some pre-sales, I would just then think about investing more time and energy into it.
Have you ever played around on Replit before?
No, I haven't.
Not Replit. Okay.
What is Replit?
Replit, I think it's a coding platform, but they have these things called bounties that they set. And then people can go out and code all these things for them for whatever bounty you want to set.
I feel like
they're developing a platform for Copilot coding assistant as well. They're introducing, essentially, I think they're trying to help get more people into programming and developing products and stuff like that.
I feel like you've just told me what Catherine's job this weekend's going to be.
What advice would you give to someone looking to start a career in AI consulting?
The one thing that I would always recommend to anyone is just start. Even if it's like you talk to your friends about some of the stuff you know, and they may come up with something saying, hey, have you looked at this, or have you looked at this problem phase? Do you think AI can do this? And I think by having those initial conversations, you're going to learn about the gaps in what you understand and what you don't understand, and be able to go learn about those gaps. Because as I said earlier, if you don't know, you don't know. And it's really important to get clarity about what you don't understand very quickly. And that's why Nick and I approach it from the perspective, we're pretty dumb. We don't quite know what we're talking about, which is why we sit in a room, we throw stuff at a wall and we see, okay, does this kind of mash up with things that we understand? And if it does, what are we missing to make it happen? That's the reason why we've gone through the whole 50 products in 50 weeks, because there's a lot of stuff we don't understand. Things change really quickly. And the only way we can keep on top of it is by forcing ourselves to actively engage in the community and do stuff. And whether that means having a conversation with your friend or your parent or your brothers and sisters about AI, just by having those conversations, you're going to make yourself smarter, more comfortable with using the technology and using the language, and you're just going to get better.
I agree. I think so. I think every time we have these conversations with other people who are interested in the space, you're always learning more and more about what's happening, what they're trying, what they're thinking of wanting to do. And if you could create anything in the AI space, which obviously you can, but what issue or what challenge would you try to tackle yourself that would solve your own problems, like something repetitive that you have to do or something you want to get rid of and you can't wait for it to happen?
If I wanted to be my backyard goal with my big, hairy, ambitious goal for AI, I have a strong dislike for GPs. Like, I feel like GPs as doctors make far too many mistakes. And when they make mistakes, people die. And I feel like AI is the perfect tool to be able to say, hey, these are the types of things you should actually be thinking about based on what you understand about this patient, and give them a distribution of saying, these are the likely outcomes of why this person is presenting like that. I know that's a long way away. A lot of that is privacy around data, et cetera, but I feel like that there is one of the best use cases for AI that isn't happening, but should happen. And I know there's companies like Harrison AI that are working on it, and they're great. It's just, I always feel like it's moving too slow.
Didn't Google come out with MedPalm 2 that performed really well against other physicians?
Yeah, Google did. I think it was something like it could pass the medical licensing exam. But at the same stage, you've got the issue there is that people still aren't comfortable with giving like Google your medical data, which I completely understand. Yeah. I completely understand that. But what I don't understand though, personally, and I'm going to speak for myself, I don't really care if Google knows I've got a cold or I've got or coughing a little bit more frequent than normal. If that means I'm going to drive a better health outcome for myself and give them my information, drive better health outcomes for me, as long as it's not going to my insurance provider and there's no one that has a financial incentive to understand that health data, happy. In Australia, I can say that as an Australian because I'm not being advertised pharmaceuticals all the time because it's illegal. But if I was in America, sure, I'd be a little bit more terrified about Google having my data.
I just want to be conscious of your time constraint today. And I've had an amazing conversation with you. And I think we spent a lot over the last 40 or so minutes. Was there any parting thoughts or anything that you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, not really. I just think the only thing I could say is anyone who is looking at getting to the AI space is go to meetups, talk to people, and try building something yourself. Like it isn't rocket science. Go to huggingface.co, look at some of the models there. You'll learn a lot by going there and just interacting with the people. And if you have a little bit of Python experience, you should definitely look at LangChain because, that's what everything's been built in, and just try stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Joshua. Appreciate your time, and we'll wrap up from
Awesome.
here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.